Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring you today's most pressing issues from across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mok-yeon. North Korea continues with its provocative military actions, launching another short-range ballistic missile this week. The launch, which came Tuesday, was the second provocation of the regime this year and just comes 8 days since its last launch. Experts are closely analyzing the regime's strategic moves, its involvement in the Ukraine war, and its potential engagement with the upcoming Trump administration in the United States. As tensions rise, key questions surround how South Korea, the U.S., and the international community should respond to safeguard security and stability in the region. For a deeper analysis into this, we connect to Dr. Go Myong-hyun, Senior Research Fellow at the Institute for National Security Strategy. Welcome, Dr. Go.
Good to be joining you.
And also joining us is Evans Revere, former Acting Assistant Secretary of State and non-resident Senior Fellow at the Foreign Policy Program at Brookings. Great to have you with us.
Pleasure to be with you.
So let's start with Dr. Go. So just yesterday, North Korea launched short-range ballistic missiles ahead of Trump's inauguration. The last time it held a hypersonic missile test, I recall you told us it was more about domestic interests. What about this time around? Do you think the provocations seek to send a message outside to the other countries?
Well, always it's the case that for North Korea to have multiple intentions behind their provocative actions. So always North Korea clearly wants to send a message to the United States and South Korea that they're there, they're active, they can foment tensions in the region anytime they want. But then this action follows the last provocation by North Korea last week, so almost 5 days after they carried out almost a week after they carried out the hypersonic missile test. And this time around, they carried out a test of their well-established weapon system, the KN-23, or the North Korean version of a Russian Iskander, which they happen to have exported to Russia for its use in Ukraine. But then again, I think North Korea is modulating the level of their provocations. And the reason why I say this is because North Korea could have carried out a much more severe form of provocations, such as a nuclear test, after, especially this is 2025, and then President Donald Trump is about to start the second term soon. But nonetheless, they refrain from doing so, and they have carried out, I would say, low-level provocation. Now that North Korea's missile provocations has been normalized because they have carried out so many tests in the past year or so. So I think what North Korea is doing is less about sending a message, which is still valid, but it's more about probably to test the technical developments of their weapon systems. That was especially true with the last week's, actually the missile test in the January 6th with the hypersonic system. But I think North Korea could be testing out the incorporation of the Russian technology into their existing weapon system. And if that's indeed the case, then that'll be worrisome because this test will be a benchmark for North Korea's development of missile systems.
Right, so it was more of testing its technological capabilities. Now to Mr. Revere, in a recent statement, North Korea declared it would pursue the toughest counteraction strategy towards the U.S., especially in response to growing military bloc between Seoul and Tokyo. What kind of strategy could we expect from North Korea during the second Trump term?
Well, I think this is a work in progress, this evolving North Korean strategy, but I think some of the key elements of it can already be seen. They're already apparent, and they're going to develop even further. Those elements, I think, include a specific emphasis on North Korea's de facto alliance and cooperative partnership with Russia. And that sends a very powerful message to the United States and others, especially since the implication is that North Korea is increasingly going to be able to draw on the support of Russia for its military and other programs, including perhaps its missile programs. So that is a core element, I think, of the evolving strategy here. Also, the North Koreans and the Russians have had ongoing dialogue about what sort of specific technologies that the Russians might be able to provide to North Korea in return for the support that North Korea is providing to Russia in its war against Ukraine. And those technologies, some of them are pretty close to cutting edge technologies that involve satellite launch capabilities, the possibility of increasing North Korea's ability to launch multiple warheads on its medium and long range ballistic missiles, its submarine launch ballistic missile program, satellite launch capabilities, et cetera. So that's another aspect of this that is very important.
How about you? What kind of diplomatic approaches do you think could emerge, and what challenges might arise in any future negotiations?
Well, we can only guess how the second Trump administration, or President Trump's second term, the United States government will approach North Korea. But then I think so far we have to look at the signs and then other indicators, such as the makeup of President Trump's second term's foreign policy and national security team. But more importantly, what President Trump has said about his intentions regarding North Korea during the campaign trail and afterwards, after his victory in the November elections last year. But so far it looks like the President Trump's approach to North Korea in the second term could be very similar to his approach to North Korea in the first one. And the reason is because we are seeing the return of some familiar faces when it comes to U.S. Dialogue in North Korea in the first term. For instance, Alex Wong, who has been appointed as the Deputy National Security Advisor for the White House for second term. He was the Deputy Assistant Secretary for East Asian Affairs in the State Department in the first term, and he was had a very important role when it comes to dialogue between Washington and Pyongyang. So he could be a point person for the renewing the dialogue between North Korea and the United States and so forth. But at the same time, other important actors in the second President Trump's second national security team, they tend to be more hardline, such as the nominee for the State Department, Senator Marco Rubio, as well as the National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz. They represent more of a traditional national security thinking of the United States, so more probably skeptical about engaging North Korea in denuclearization negotiations because North Korea doesn't really live up to its promises. But then most important part here is what President Trump thinks about North Korea. And he seems to be very optimistic about the renewing dialogue with Kim Jong-un. And also he said it during the campaign trail that he believes Kim Jong-un to be smart. And then also he said that he had great relations with Kim Jong-un in his first presidency. And he clearly that his expectation for the second round of negotiation with North Korea is the same, that he believes he can do it. But what's also important is what North Korea thinks about renewing dialogue with the United States. And so the picture there is a little bit mixed. It seems to be that North Korea, from its actions, such as not carrying out very severe provocations, there seems to be some optimism or expectation of having productive dialogue with the United States. But at the same time, both Kim Jong-un and his sister, Kim Mok-yeon, have indicated some level of skepticism about engaging the United States in dialogue because they said that the United States maintains strong hostile policy towards the country. So it remains to be seen, and it seems to be that North Korea is going to hold out until they hear something more of a concrete offer from Washington before engaging in dialogue with the United States seriously.
Right. So given this North Korea's aggressive rhetoric and military actions, then what kind of steps should South Korea and the international community take to ensure that any future nuclear negotiations avoid sidelining South Korea's interests, Dr. Go?
Well, engagement with North Korea is a good thing, I think, in principle. And I think we should have some level of a dialogue with Kim Jong-un, not because we want to legitimize North Korea's illicit behavior, but just to manage tensions in the region and also send a message. And here, I think what's really important here is the consistency in the messaging towards North Korea. I think there's some discussion about, or like some sort of confusion, I would say, among important players in the international community about how we should approach North Korea's nuclear capability development. And I think clearly South Korea, as well as Japan, would like to see consistency in this regard, especially when it comes to making sure that the international community are coordinating their actions for the denuclearization of North Korea. But then I think this is a goal that we should all agree on and then maintain. But then it seems to be the other important players, such as Russia and China, seem to be more accepting of North Korea's nuclear capability. And I think that's a problem because the entire international coordination is based on North Korea's denuclearization. And I think therefore it's very important for the Trump administration to be very clear about this, that regardless of what the Chinese and Russians are saying about North Korea's nuclear program, the United States government is continuing with their focus on North Korea's denuclearization, which seems to be a little bit vague. President Trump said that during the campaign trail that might not be the ultimate objective of his policies towards North Korea in the second term. So therefore, it's important for President Trump to highlight that there's a policy continuity, not just between him and the Biden administration, but also with all the preceding U.S. administration in regard to North Korea. It's just been about denuclearization, and we would like President Trump to highlight this again.
Right, so it all circles back to how Trump would keep his stance on North Korean policies in the upcoming term. Now, let's touch upon the situation in Ukraine, too. President Zelensky recently emphasized that Russia is heavily reliant on North Korea's military support. Mr. Revere, how do you view North Korea's involvement in the Ukraine conflict?
Well, the continued presence of North Korean troops, combat forces, is troubling. It's probably not unfair to say that not only is North Korea aiding Russia in its campaign and war against Ukraine, but North Korea is in a certain sense at war with NATO. NATO is supporting Ukraine, and North Korea is working to continue to try to undermine the ability of Ukraine to defend itself and undermine the ability of NATO allies to help Ukraine maintain its territorial integrity. So that's a key factor that I think we need to keep in mind going forward. I don't think, having said that North Korean forces and the contribution that North Korea is making to combat operations right now are going to be the decisive factor in determining the outcome of this war. But having said that, North Korean troops, combat forces on the ground, engaging in offensive operations there. Its provision of artillery shells and short-range and medium-range ballistic missiles makes a difference. And it certainly is going to guarantee that the conflict is going to continue to go on for quite some time. And that's not good for Ukraine. It's not good for the United States and its NATO allies, because it means that this horrific meat grinder of combat operations is going to continue, and it's going to continue to exact a toll on Ukraine and its people. So I think that's the essential way to look at the North Korean role here. But then there's another aspect to this North Korean role, which is what is North Korea going to get in return for the investment that it has made in supporting Russia's operations against Ukraine. And that gets into a very delicate and sensitive area, as I mentioned earlier, because the North Koreans are seeking some very sensitive, critical, and important technologies that could make a big difference in terms of how it deals with the Republic of Korea, Japan, and the United States in East Asia.
Right. It's indeed all the more concerning what North Korea would get in return for its participation in the war. Now, recently, Ukraine has proposed a prisoner exchange involving North Korean soldiers captured in the conflict. The soldiers say they weren't told ahead that they would be participating in this Ukraine war specifically. Mr. Revere, what kind of implications could this have for North Korea's internal propaganda?
It's very troubling to hear that the soldiers, North Korean troops, had no idea that they were going into a major combat operations. That's really amazing when you think about it, that they were there solely for training, is what they were told, according to those North Korean prisoners. I mean, that is just a horrific thing to do to troops, to tell them that they're going for one purpose, when in fact the reality is that they're going to another country to fight for a completely different purpose than the one that they were told. Beyond that, though, the North Koreans, and this gets to the core of your question, the North Korean regime has shown itself to be masters at manipulating its internal propaganda, domestic propaganda. And so a lot of what we're hearing and seeing right now, these are things, facts and events that the average North Korean citizen is never going to hear anything about, is never going to get any clarity on what those troops are doing there, the suffering that they're going through, the combat losses that they're taking, et cetera. And I think the North Koreans have shown themselves to be very adept at making sure that information like this does not get through to the North Korean people and to the families of those soldiers. But eventually, as this conflict continues, North Korean soldiers are going to end up back home and are going to start talking to people and are going to start sharing their experiences and the horrific details of what they are subjected to on the battlefield. And that, I think, has some potential to cause the North Korean people to finally understand what the reality is. And that, I suspect, will undermine, to some degree, their confidence in the regime in Pyongyang.
Right, so this latest confessions by these soldiers were very shocking for all of us, including, it will be shocking for North Korean citizens as well. Now, Dr. Go, how do you expect North Korea then to respond to the news of its soldiers being captured and publicly displayed by Ukraine? And do you think they would accept the exchange offer?
Well, North Korean regime didn't ever officially acknowledge that they had deployed or sent soldiers to Ukraine on behalf of Russia. So chances that North Korea is going to continue with that discover that they don't have official deployment to Ukraine at the moment. So I think North Korean regime is not going to acknowledge the fact that their soldiers have been taken prisoner by the Ukrainian military. So they'll be in denial. But it doesn't mean that they're not going to accept prisoner exchange with Ukraine. I mean, what it means is that North Korea is not going to refuse taking back their own soldiers from the Ukrainian hands. But then it's not going to be a direct transaction or the trade between the North Korean government or the Ukrainian government. It's going to if prisoner exchange indeed takes place, it will only be happening through Russia. So. Right now, the North Korean soldiers have been deployed to Ukraine under the guise of being part of the Russian military unit. So chances that the Russians are going to handle this issue if North Korean regime indeed is willing to accept the prisoner exchange with Ukraine.
Right, so whether they will accept or not will depend on how Russia will react to this. Right, gentlemen, we have lots more questions prepared, but I'm afraid we'll have to leave our discussion right here. Thank you so much for your insights, Dr. Go and Mr. Revere.
You're welcome.
My pleasure.
That'll be all from us on Within the Frame. Be sure to tune in again next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Until then, stay informed and engaged.